Hello and welcome back. In this section, we are going to be working on global variable and scope. Now, I will be defining what scope means, and from there, I'll be showing you and telling you the various scopes that we have, and we can do an illustration together. Now, scope means the environment, the context in which that specific element is available. Now, when we talk about scope in PHP, there are two types of scope. We have the global scope and the local scope. Now, let me talk briefly on the global scope. The global scope is going to be available outside the function and inside the function. Alright, now locally, the local scope is going to be available inside the function and it won't be available outside the function. So it's only when it's the local scope is only available inside the function, so it cannot be available outside the function. Now let's move on to an illustration. Let's come down to Visual Studio Code. Oh my god. Alright, now let's create a file. So we have scope.php. So we just put in our HTML doc structure. In there, let's have a PHP syntax right here. Now I'm just going to declare a variable, so I'll just say x and assign a value called outside right here. Okay, so I'm going to say this is a globally declared variable. Alright, so I'm going to create a function here. So let's declare a function and we call that convert. Alright, so we just put that there. Okay, so here we have x. Let's declare that as a variable. Now we assign a value inside, we call that inside. Okay, so we come outside net here and I'm gonna echo the first x, then I'm gonna output convert, call the convert function. And I will come down it here and echo another x right here. Alright, now what we have here, so this is local, it's a local scope. Okay, and let me just change this to a global scope instead of putting much of this relevant talks. So let's see, it's a global scope, then this is the local scope. Now let's go check our browser. Okay, so I'm just gonna have this, go to, okay, so we have scope. Alright, now let's check this out. Let's minimize this so we can see what's happening. Okay, I'm gonna put an echo break here. Alright, now if you look at this, I gave you the definition of the global variable as being available outside the function and inside the function. Now if you look at this x variable here is what is coming up here. Okay, the first outside here, okay, is the one that we have right here. Okay, so this is the output of it. Now if you look at this, inside this particular function, we still have x, but it's not available, it's not actually seen, bringing this out right here. Okay, it's not being output, it's not showing up, so there's a problem. Okay, so what we have here is initially it's supposed to actually bring out the value that we have here as inside, but with what we have is just bringing out only the outside word, the outside that we have here. It's just bringing out only outside, and it's not saying what we have inside of the function. So how do we solve this problem? We just come down it here and write down, put down a keyword called global and assign x to that. So immediately this x, right, is now global, even right inside this local scope, because the reason why it's not the reason why the value, the variable declared x, is not visible inside this function is because it's a local scope, and a local scope can only be visible locally. That's why this particular x wasn't visible locally, right? But for we to make it visible, okay, we're gonna use the global keyword, then we assign x to it, so automatically this is now global also. So let's go and reload this. Okay, so we see that now we have inside displaying here, because what we have inside this the local scope is now being changed and is globally visible right now. So that's just what is that's how this scope actually works. Okay, even though we declare another function, if we output another x, is still going to give us the same inside. Okay, so that's how this particular scope operates in. Let me just do a little recap, and I'm going to put down this, I'm going to run this up. Now I said the global variable is going to be available outside the function and inside the function, and we assigned the variable, we declared the variable x, and we assigned this value outside, right? And we created a function and call it convert. Then the function, we just assign x, okay, and we change the value to inside. So initially this was not visible, okay, because the local scope can only be visible locally. Okay, the local scope can only be visible locally. So for we to make this local scope to be visible globally, we have to introduce the global keyword, and we assign the, the variable x to it. So with this, it makes this locally this local variable x global. Okay, and immediately once we go check the result, because I call the function here, okay, and as the moment I call the function and I output the variable that's inside this function, so we have echo x, so it goes in there and pick up the value that we have inside this function. So that's what really happens here. Okay, so I believe you have a good understanding about this. So the local variable, the local scope is only accessible locally, okay, but the global scope is accessible locally and globally. Okay, it's accessible inside and outside the function. So it's just very important that you know, well, how this works. All right, so that'll be all for now. I'm sure you have a good understanding about how we achieve this, and we're going to work more about on this in projects and the upcoming tasks that we're going to be doing, and you're going to have a much more understanding about this scope in PHP. All right, thank you very much for your time, and bye for now.